So students, we have seen that how that money is classified uh, into its different forms, like that of the, we have studied about full-bodied money, representative full-bodied money, credit money, right? So where the full-bodied money was the one where the intrinsic and the face value were equal to each other, like gold coins and silver coins. And apart from this, representative full-bodied money was that money which was a paper currency where the value of the paper was not actually equal to the amount printed on that particular piece of paper. So that was a representative full-bodied money, and we have studied about it in our previous video, where this currency was backed by 100% gold and silver. So this paper money is having the backing of 100% gold and silver reserves. What does that mean is that if this money, the value of this money is going to be corresponded with some type of commodity, उसका जब मेल किसी ऐसी particular commodity से किया जाए where the value of that commodity as well as the value of that money are both equal to each other. So from the very previous time, the backing of this currency notes is done in the commodity like that of precious metals, like that of gold or silver, right? So even if the demand of this currency is not going to be there, but you are having a backing of this same, the commodity which is backing this money is corresponding to the value which is equal to the commodity as well as the money value. जो currency amount में थी वो उस commodity की value के बराबर correspond करती है. तो that is the backing of gold and silver. Then we have studied about the credit money, जिसमें आपने token coins and promissory notes, ये सब आपका and bank deposits, ये सब आपकी credit money थी, right? So in this way we have studied about all those different forms of money. Now let's study about this money supply, as we have already studied before. That money supply is the money held with the public, and this money which is held with the public here means private individuals plus the business firms. Okay, so what type of money is not included in the money supply? Okay, it is the money which is held by the banks, okay, government, central bank, that is Reserve Bank of India. All this money is actually not in circulation, and that is why it is not included in the money supply. So money supply only includes currency, C means here currency notes, currency coins, and demand deposits. These are the net demand deposits, which are actually money supply includes only the spendable form of money, which is in transaction, which is moving from one hand to another hand, right? In circulation. So money in circulation is to be taken in the money supply. So it includes currency notes, currency coins, as well as demand deposits, which are the deposits of the account holders in their bank account and can be withdrawn on their demand. So these are the demand deposits, right? Then another term here it is coming is high powered money. So what is this high powered money actually? High powered money actually includes all the currency, that is coins, notes, as well as R. What is this R actually? R here means all kinds of deposits held by government and also commercial banks with the RBI. That is, I can write here government and commercial banks. So all the type of deposits, maybe these maybe demand deposits or any other kind of deposit that is held by the government or the commercial banks with RBI, Reserve Bank of India, as we all have already studied before that Reserve Bank of India is that particular apex bank which is having all the deposits, which is having deposits, not all deposits, it is having deposits of commercial banks also as well as of government, right? So this is what is R here, and high powered money includes all the money which is there in the money supply with the deposits held with government as well as commercial banks. So this is high powered money. After this, let's talk about the criteria of money supply by Reserve Bank of India. Now let's move on to the measures of money supply. There are various measures of money supply, and if in this you can see, in India there are 4 measures of money supply: M1, M2, M3 and M4 money supply. These are the 4 different measures of money supply presented by Reserve Bank of India. So all these 4 measures of money supply are presented by the Reserve Bank of India, and these 4 different money supplies are on the basis of recommendations of second working group of RBI on money supply. So this is the second working group of RBI where the measures of money supply are taken to be as M1, M2, M3 and M4. Here M1 is the most liquid, and after that the liquidity starts falling down. As we have studied about the narrow money and the broad money, the narrow money is that money which is very liquid, easily convertible, whereas the broad money is less liquid, it is not easily convertible. And here also these 4 measures are based on the liquidity of money. The first M1 money supply is the most liquid, M2 is lesser liquid, but both of them are coming in the category of narrow money, and M3 and M4 are the broad money approach, which are less liquid, or the last measure of money supply, that is M4, is the least liquid. So the liquidity is going on decreasing as we move down to the different measures M1, M2, M3, M4. So let's study about the first M1 money supply presented by Reserve Bank of India. According to this money supply M1, it includes C, that means currency notes, currency coins. As we all know that the currency to be printed is done by Reserve Bank of India. This is the apex institution, that is the Reserve Bank of India is the apex institution having the sole authority of issuing notes, currency, right? So this C will include currency notes, currency coins. With DD is the demand deposits. As I told you all before also, demand deposits are those deposits which are deposited in a particular bank account by an account holder and can be withdrawn on his demand. So these are the demand deposits which can be used in the economic exchanges. Okay, this also can be used in economic exchanges, like the amount of money which is there in the bank of an account holder, he can use his check for any type of transaction, for completing any type of transaction. So that is coming in the M1 money supply. With this OD, that is other deposits, are also to be included in the M1 money supply. So these other deposits are, I am going to read. These are other deposits with RBI of quasi-government institutions like Industrial Development Bank of India, foreign central banks and government, International Monetary Fund, World Bank, etc. These other deposits includes all those type of deposits of with RBI. मतलब ये RBI के पास होते हैं ये सारे other deposits with RBI, with both the level of governments like central or state, and this is what we call as quasi government, and all those institutions which are also having the deposits in this RBI, other deposits. Okay, and like that of Industrial Development Bank of India, IDBI, you may be all knowing about it, and foreign central banks also are having deposits in the RBI. So this is how other deposits are included in the M1 money supply, okay, which is the most liquid measure of money supply. Then we come to the M2 money supply. This is the money supply which is somewhat lesser liquid than M1. How? Because if you see, M2 money supply includes all the components of M1 money supply, C plus DD plus other deposits. M1. Whole M1 is included in this M2 money supply. But with this M1 money supply, one more new component is going to be added in this M2 money supply, that is savings deposits with post office savings bank. You all may be knowing about the savings deposits. Post offices are also accepting the deposits from the public. Okay, but there is one function which is performed by these post offices to accept the deposit, but they do not give out loans. Okay, and this is what the circulation of money is actually being affected here, right? And because of this, what happens that when we add up this deposits of post office in the savings bank account, then it becomes lesser liquid because the money is not going to be in circulation. It is going to be accepting the deposits only. One function is it is going to perform only. To be a bank, it is very important to perform two functions. For any bank to be called as a bank, it must perform two very important functions. Number one, it should accept the deposits from the public, and number two, it should give out loans. But it is going to post office is carrying on with only one function. Now another one, M3 money supply. Let's move on to this. M3 money supply includes M1 money supply. Full M1 money supply here means currency, demand deposits and other deposits. And with this M1, one new component is going to come into it. This is net time deposits with the commercial banks. These are the net time deposits with the commercial banks. Now, time deposits, I have already told you before also that these are those type of deposits which are to be fixed for a particular period of time, like for 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, like this. You can fix your amount, you can fix your money in the commercial bank, and after the maturity of this time period, you can get back your money with a good rate of interest. With interest, you get your money back. So when time deposits are going to be included here, then automatically what will happen? The liquidity will go down more. So therefore we can say that M1 and M2 are both narrow approach of money, more liquid as compared to M3 and M4, right? So in M3, these are the time deposits. And the word net time deposits here means that these are the deposits which the banks get, and also the banks also can open up account in other banks. So the balance between them, it is called as net time deposits. After this, let's see M4 money supply. M4 money supply includes full M3 money supply. That means M1 currency, demand deposits and other deposits plus net time deposits with the commercial banks. And this M3 money supply was already less liquid, but when we come to M4, then it becomes more least liquid, as it includes the one new component in it, that is total deposits with post office. These are the total deposits with post office, okay, which include all the type of deposits which are coming to the post office, okay, in the form of different programs started by the government. Those type of deposits are being generated in post offices, right, and excluding नेशनल सेविंग्स सर्टिफिकेट. इसमें नेशनल सेविंग्स सर्टिफिकेट जो आपका एनएससी होता है उसको एक्सक्लूड करके, सो आई राइट इट हियर, एक्सक्लूडिंग national savings certificate NSC. And if you'll see that national savings certificate is that type of certificate in which you can invest your money, you can deposit your money there and can get a very good interest rate on it. After some time back, you can get back your money with good rate of interest to be implied on it, right? So this is M4 money supply, which is taking into account total deposits. So total deposits is also very good amount, which is with the post office, okay. So that total money amount with M3. So it will make M4 money supply. This is the fourth and least liquid measure of money supply presented by Reserve Bank of India. So here you can see 4 different measures of money supply. After this, we will be doing about commercial banks now. Now these are some of the functions of money here. You can see we divide the functions of money into 2 categories here: primary and secondary functions of money. Before studying about commercial banks, we should learn about these functions also. So after these functions only we will be studying about commercial banks. Just now you can see here primary functions of money and secondary functions of money. In 2 categories we have divided the functions of money. In primary functions, unit of value and medium of exchange. These 2 you can say behavior, or you can say the qualities of money, or you can say the function of money is to be studied in the primary functions. So first of all, let's talk about unit of value. How is money going to serve as a unit of value? So I'll read it for you. Notes are already with you. Money is a unit of account as it has a unit of value. It is unit of account in terms of which the value of all goods and services is measured and expressed. That means each and every good which is produced in different sectors in a particular economy, the value of all those goods and services is to be judged by money, or you can say the value of those commodities is corresponding with the unit of money. What is the unit of money? If we will directly speak, 1 rupee is equal to 1 unit of money. So if a person is going to purchase a wrist watch of 500 rupees, it means he had given 500 units of money to get that wristwatch. So the value of that watch can be easily measured through money. So therefore we say that money is the unit of account, right? And in other words, money is the standard unit of quoting prices of goods and services. If you will be seeing any type of good or service that you are purchasing from the market, the packet of that particular good is having one tag on it. That tag is going to tell you the total money value of that particular commodity. Maybe it be a shirt or a trouser, whatever. The value of each good or service is expressed as its price, and this is why this price is actually what? It is the money only. It is the money only. The price here, which is the price tag which is on every cloth, any product, any type of service, then that is to be measured in terms of money. In other words, prices of all goods and services are expressed in terms of money, and after knowing the prices of goods and services, it is not difficult to determine exchange ratio between them. So in the barter exchange system, there was a problem, there was a difficulty when one chair was going to be exchanged with one horse, because there was no unit of value. How can we measure the value of the how can we measure that what is the value of the horse? It can be exchanged with one chair. This is not the right form of exchange. But when we are having money with us, which is the common measure of value accepted by everyone, then what we can do is that we can measure the value of that particular commodity with the help of money. So therefore we call money as the unit of value or unit of account. Then we move on to the medium of exchange. Money acts to be the best medium of exchange. Why do we say so? This is the most basic function of money. I am going to read from here. As today all exchanges takes place in terms of money, and money serves as medium of exchange or payments. Money helps in buying and selling of goods and services as it is commonly accepted measure of value. So therefore, why we can say that money is the best medium of exchange? Because to purchase any good, to purchase any service, now there is no need to walk around here and there like in the barter exchange system. One person was roaming around in the market to find out how his chair can be exchanged with 1 kg of wheat. The carpenter with his chair is moving around in the market. Maybe whole day, maybe 2 days, he's just roaming around. Because there was no medium of exchange. Only the chair can be exchanged with wheat. But when we are having the best medium of medium of exchange, that is introduction of money is there, then every good or service can be easily be exchanged, because everyone accept this money. Everyone is going to accept it, right? And therefore it becomes the best medium of exchange. Then comes secondary functions of money. In the secondary functions of money, we have the first point here of standard of deferred payments. Standard of deferred payments I am going to read here. Deferred payments refer to the payments in future. That means these are those type of payments which should be made in future. Money as a standard of deferred payments has facilitated market transactions of buying, selling, borrowing. So with the help of money, all the different type of market transactions can be easily be done. And whenever you are going to purchase any particular commodity and you are not going to pay for that commodity immediately, then what will happen? You can make payments in future, in installments, right? This is what we call as deferred payments. In future, in installments, you can pay for that particular commodity which you purchased. Maybe it be a bike, maybe it be a scooty, whatever, right? So with the help of money, we can make future payments also. We can make payment in future, which was not possible in the barter exchange system. Those goods which were produced by some of the farmers, which were perishable, fruits, vegetables, they were going to spoil after 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. They were unable to, these type of people were unable to keep their wealth and store cannot make future payments with this type of wealth, which was perishable wealth. Fruits were the wealth of those farmers who were producing perishable goods, fruits, vegetables like this. So these are deferred payment. So standard of deferred payment can be possible with the help of money. So this is the second function of money. Then another function is included in this only, secondary functions of money. It is a store of value. So let's read about it also. Under the barter exchange system, storing of value in terms of goods was very difficult. Now with money, savings are done in terms of money. So you can see previously in the barter exchange system, wealth cannot be stored, especially in case of perishable goods. But because of the introduction of money, now we can store our wealth. We can store money for any time, any number of years, easily. No harm is going to be done to your money. Money occupies less space for storage in comparison with goods. Barter exchange system mein, the people's wealth was their goods that they have produced, and these goods cannot be stored for a very long time period if these were perishable, or if these were those type of goods like that of chair or any big thing, then it needed more space. But with the help of money, now no more space is required. In a very small space, you can store your money. And money helps people to transfer their purchasing power from present use to future use, right? So this means purchasing power can be used in future. That means today you can store your wealth and can, whenever in need of that amount of money to purchase any, say, house or any other type of thing, a land, whatever, you can purchase in future after storing your money. So this is why another function is in the secondary is store of value. Money has the quality of storing it, store of value, which was not possible in barter exchange system. So these were all the different functions of money.